This thing get longer.
Pretty cool.
Just make it.
I move up here.
How about a call to order?
That's what you just did.
Oh, all right.
You did.
Let us bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for all of our blessings. Among those blessings are the high-quality staff, the drivers, the mechanics, the administrators, Coastal RTA. We ask your assistance in conducting this meeting and in our civic affairs. We're kind of puzzled because we heard on the radio the other day that the major purpose of a corporate board is to hire and fire the GM. With your assistance, Heavenly Father, I think we can get to a higher bar level than that. In your name, we give thanks. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In case there's any question, I did hear that on NPR.
I heard the blurb for it. I didn't hear the
You
story.
have to get it from here. You have to get it from here.
I don't think we're going to get too far down in the weeds, but I think we can do a little bit better than just hiring and firing. Considering we don't have to fire anybody. All right, roll call.
Catherine Angelo. Here. Sid Blackwelder. Darryl Wyckoff.
Here.
Debbie Gasquet. Here. Robert James. Lily Jean Johnson.
Here.
Marvin King.
Here.
Joseph Lazara. Rob Sheehan.
Here.
Bernard Silverman.
Here.
Ivory Wilson.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Nick, Joe, is
Mr.
your
Lazara's
that?
out of town.
Oh, that's right.
He's in Florida.
So yeah, that's where he said he
Still
was
in
going to
Florida?
be. We have apparently no visitors. I don't see any. Then we will move on. We'll have no public comment. How about employee recognition? Have you got anything for us today?
Yeah, I'm gonna steal a little bit of my GM report thunder, and you all have gotten an email to this effect, but I just wanted to recognize Ron and his staff, Kathy Hennessy and Danny and Kevin and Pam, getting through audit with flying colors.
That's great.
It was pretty amazing. They, I heard from the auditors directly basically saying that their audit hadn't been laid out for them that well in a long, long time. So kudos to them, and so far no findings. So and unqualified opinion. So we're doing some research on whether or not that's ever happened here or not.
Yeah.
But
I doubt it.
it certainly hasn't happened in a long time. So we're pretty proud of that.
And what happened with the internationals? Why is that not fine?
That's a procedural issue. It's not, we've accounted for it fine in the accounting world, so the auditors don't have any issues with it. And I'll give you an update on what's going on with them in the GM report. I'm not stealing that thunder.
Positive comment on the selection of the auditor too.
Yes, they
the same people did the one the previous year, and
yeah, we've even gotten a little bit of cannon fodder for the previous folks in terms of what they did and didn't do. So, so far, really, really positive experience. So we'll see.
How's the lawsuit going?
We could go into executive session if you'd like to hear about that.
You're talking about the lawsuit with the accountant?
Yes.
With the
Yeah,
auditor?
What do we-
certainly could go into.
we could do that now, or we could hold it
You
on.
can wait. You can wait.
Okay.
Yeah, we got one down there, so.
We have added an item to our agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. Per our new Robert's Rules of Orders, which by the way was not named after me, in case you're wondering.
I move we approve the agenda as written.
It was Army Brigadier General Henry Robert. Boy, that guy must have had not much to do with his life.
I second it.
This is what.
You must be taking happy pills this morning.
Discussion on that, if there's gonna be a new business item,
we bring it up now or wait till we get that on the agenda?
I think the intent is if you want to bring something up into old business or new business or something like that, you should bring it up now.
I do, I have one item later. I could review, 2 meetings ago, we discussed a movement of a staff position. And after we discussed the movement from one department to another and the name of the person, someone voiced that, well, we should go into executive session because a person's name was used. I don't know if that's true or not. I'd like to revisit that topic for the future if we ever get that again. I'm not sure.
Well, it's a personnel matter.
Yeah.
It's not something you're trying to hide.
Yeah, man,
That's where I'm at.
it was sort of a done deal, so it wasn't.
Well, that, I'm
really-
worried about the future.
Yeah.
If we
What
want to move you
became
the maintenance
personnel was
to,
the fact, the comments that were then made in discussion of the
Let's,
position and that.
well, well, I
If you don't
hear
mind,
that.
let's table that.
I want that on the agenda
for
for
one
new
more meeting.
business. Yeah, okay,
Do the
gotcha.
next meeting.
So, 'cause this might come up again a year from now.
And so you're talking about sort of just a conversation about how we go about that procedurally.
Correct, and if that person's name is ever used, does that automatically trigger, we need to go to East?
Sure.
That's where I'm at.
Okay,
Okay.
so we'll make sure that's on the agenda.
Okay.
And we had a discussion in the Finance Committee meeting about bringing forward to this meeting 2 things, as I recall. One was general plan for paying for the fixed bus stop. And that may be, if you want to cover that in general manager's report.
Now, we'll talk about that in service pack committee.
Okay, and the other was the longstanding letter to the hoteliers. My recollection, oh, you're just the perfect person today. Okay, then I'd have nothing
So
else
yeah,
to add.
we'll
Nothing to
I
add.
think we will reserve that for finance because that's kind of when we talk about it. But I do have,
All in favor of the agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. The ayes have it. Okay, approval of the minutes from the December meeting, which we got well enough in advance, so we should have had a chance to take a look at it. Any comments or suggestions?
I move you accept them as written.
I second it.
And we have a second from, 2 seconds, okay, from Kitty. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
I have a comment.
Oh,
I
okay.
just wanted to call to the attention of whoever does the minutes to please spell my first name correctly.
Oh, we
i.e.,
muddled that up. Okay.
certainly doesn't show up on spell check.
I'm sorry, Miss
Sorry about that.
Jean.
Yeah,
All those in favor of the amended minutes?
Thank God there's somebody else that does
Aye.
it besides me. Been saying that for years
Aye.
with my name.
yeah.
You have Catherine at ER?
Catherine, no, it's A.R. Katharina.
And do some people put ER?
Oh, yeah, a lot of people.
Okay. Any opposed to the minutes? All right, the ayes have it. Moving on to the consent agenda resolutions. 3 of them. Would you care to?
Well, these are standard resolutions that we get from you all to essentially attach to our, are they in the package?
Yes, the last
Sorry.
3 sheets,
Um,
last 2 sheets.
These are all grants that are part of your approved budget. And these are just things that we attach into the grant application to let people know that we vetted them with you all. So they are for next year's rural program, that's January 2018-01. Just all of our conversations with local funders in terms of local funding, which is 02. And then the 3 is 5307 grants, which is the amendment to our current operating preventive maintenance program, as well as first phase of the bus stop design designation.
Okay, do we have any requests to pull any of the items from the consent agenda and deal with them separately? Hearing none, we will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second, we approve the consent agendas, all 3.
And a second for that?
I second it.
Okay. Kitty will be the seconder.
I got discussion, got that discussion.
Discussion?
Yeah, I have, on the On the O2 one, request from local governments, last year we were behind the 8 ball as far as like asking too late. We asked late into the budget process of like Conway, at least I was at that meeting, but maybe others. Are we on target now for this year, or are we working on that?
We are. The county got out in front of us a little bit on that, but I don't have anything scheduled, but I know that Mayor Bellamy Blaine and Adam Emmerich, the new city manager, are ready to talk, so I'll get that scheduled and I'll get into their budget process.
We got 6,000 last time,
6,500.
and the year before that, we got 0, and prior years, we used to get 4 years, 2
Yeah,
years
it
back.
was 2 years in a row we didn't get anything, and then I think that was 4,000 in FY14.
And no negative feedback if we go to the road usage reimbursement county, that they lose their money.
Well, I mean, that's very, it's very likely that we will be having that conversation with all the funders in terms of, okay, now we're providing these funds under this other scenario, and so it's gonna be up to us to kind of convince them.
But she
that,
said
don't-
nothing to you at all.
She talked to me before she talked to Chairman Lazarus.
I
So-
talked to her after she met with Lazarus Emmerich, and she said nothing to me.
Right. I think they're okay with that plan. The question is whether or not they're gonna be willing to contribute more above and beyond that plan.
Fortunately, it's only 6,500.
It's a bigger issue in Myrtle Beach.
Katie had a question.
Yeah, previously, we used to contact the
65.
the municipalities that did not fund us. We're not doing that anymore?
Well, we
Because
haven't-
we haven't gotten anything out of that, do we?
Right, well, we probably need to go have this discussion with Surfside.
You
And
can
now,
find anyone there.
right, and then we're definitely having this conversation. We are ahead of the curve in Georgetown County.
And he has on this O2, local governments, where we used to do one Surfside with North Myrtle Beach,
Yeah,
Florida.
yeah,
Yeah.
Now it's just got local governments.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
essentially are authorizing me to go out and find it wherever I can find it.
Okay, all right.
And we need to have a conversation with Loris as well.
Yeah.
So.
We just combined all of those into one,
Yeah.
instead of having a separate letter for everybody.
None of these funders
Or
have
separate
asked
resolution.
for a resolution from the board like this, but it's just, getting your
good.
buy-in on going after it.
Right.
Any other questions on the consent agenda? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Now, we are up to the service PAC report. What a great meeting. I was very sorry that I missed that meeting. That's where guns and things like that were discussed.
Yeah, we had some good times.
So, okay, well, let's start with that. If,
Let's get the legit.
You-
Mr. Chairman Burton said that he would review the items
there you go.
that he made emailed
Okay.
to us, and then
Right.
Brian can add whatever.
Yeah, I made some notes following the meeting.
Thank you.
4 people who weren't there for Lily Jean, she was not there. And we talked about 3 main things. The enunciation system, and it's not working correctly on all buses, although some it is. And I haven't been on every bus, but Brian's thought was that we need to take it back a little bit and fix it up, make it right, and then, roll it out when we're really ready. We talked about the
So
code
does
of
that mean that
conduct.
we're turning it off in the buses that we had it on?
We have on routes that it's not working.
Okay.
It's on routes where it's working. And there are different issues depending on which route you're talking about. So we're systematically going through those issues, and once something is ready to go, it'll be rolled out on that particular route.
And the company that had sold us that system, are they still involved in this?
Oh, yeah.
And are we paying them for their involvement?
No, this is all included in our original price.
Okay.
So no extra bells at this point. This is all troubleshooting, and this side of it, the app they've been doing for quite a while, but this stuff enunciation is new for them.
Mhm.
So there's definitely some growing pains associated with that, so.
I've heard complaints from drivers about it, but I think mostly because it's new, it's just a different thing. And they've had some issue with their using either a phone or a pad on the battery, you know that about that one?
There's been power issues with the tablets, there's been
Just one more thing for them to think about.
issues when you stop at a particular stop, it keeps repeating that stop, which can be quite annoying.
I can't
Things
get a
like that.
two-year-old
So
in the
these-
back of the car.
So these are all, you know, are we there yet?
Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
We should maybe add those to it, but, it's definitely had its share of issues, and we did not roll it out the way we probably should have, but we're working on it.
Yeah, and I think it's gonna be a good thing.
It's something we have to do, so it's, we gotta get it straight at some point soon.
The other thing, next thing we talked about was going through the gun decals on our bus to make sure that they're compliant and that we are, you know, doing everything we can for our liability and whatnot. And I don't know, are we done with that? Have we figured that one out?
No, we've established that it is okay for us to, deny even permitted concealed weapons on our vehicles and in our facilities. In order to do that, though, you have to have a sign on your front door. And where that's complicated things is, you know, some of our facilities are rolling buses and they don't have the same amount of space that the front door to an establishment would have. So we've asked the attorneys to kind of take a look at that and give us an interpretation on what that entails. Certainly banning concealed weapons or any weapons of any type is going to be part of a new rider's code of conduct that we're working on. We passed out a sample from the Columbus, Ohio area transit system. And so that's, we can get some of those if we need to, but we'll probably need a little bit more discussion in the service committee meetings, service staff committee meetings moving forward, but we want to roll out that new code of conduct before summer. So,
Like the next service pack, which I'm no longer on that committee, Columbus, Ohio is fine, I like what they're doing in Charleston and Columbia.
And that may be an issue for tax.
Actually, I reached out to the sister authorities and RTA doesn't have one in place, but we'll be exploring. Carta hasn't gotten back to me, she thought they had something in place, Comet does not have anything in place.
How do they become sister authorities instead of mother authorities?
Because she called her statewide freedom.
well, certainly, you know, there's the state statutes
So I
are
just
pretty
wanted to know I
silent
didn't
on
talk
this,
to
so,
task.
you know, that would be a good agenda item for task to kind of move something forward through the state legislature on sort of some consistent guidelines for how we govern.
Well, have we had any negative feedback from the article in the paper? Any community feedback or anything?
Are you aware of any? I thought it was a pretty good article.
I'm gonna follow up on TV13 that Friday.
Yeah, so I think everybody understands and, you know, given the world in what we live in and some recent events, it makes some sense for us to take a stand on it.
If we have someone on the bus who is a police officer who carries a weapon as an occupational requirement, or is that cool?
That is something that we would probably allow, but they've gotta let us know they're doing it, I think. So, you know, it's one thing to enforce it. I mean, a concealed weapon is
Yeah.
exactly that, it's concealed, but, you know,
Well,
all we could do is train our drivers on how to react to certain situations and.
Yeah.
Some
and,
crazies dress up as police officers.
Yeah, so it's something that we probably need to get more outside help on in terms of how to deal with it.
Well, that may be another thing with task and the DOT, Office of Public Transportation might want to get involved in that.
And it's a kind of two-sided, though. I mean, raising it to a state level DOT issue might reveal an entirely different set of opinions than
Yeah.
what our board in fact feels. From what I understand, the board feels that weapons should not be allowed on our buses.
Well, let's, you know, let's see what the attorneys say. They may find another statute somewhere that's a little bit more governing on this, and then we'll just sort of move forward. But it's in development, and it's gonna be part of this new code of conduct policy that we're putting out. We wanna cover other things that we discussed in the meeting, like personal hygiene and, other things. And the nice thing about that Columbus one was that it kind of laid it out really nicely in a fairly
Yeah.
And it's
large
also,
sign,
it's written out more on
lots
their
of circles with
website,
slashes.
but
Yeah.
the international symbols were for their posting on the bus, and then on their websites, everything's written out, so you've got.
Does it include playing loud music?
I think so.
It doesn't, but we had talked about that, and then other customer courtesy of no cell phone, like the cell phone usage and other things, we talked about adding that as well.
This, this
Here it
one,
is, I got it. I thought I had
We're not trying to-
There it is.
We're not trying to get.
there's a
cell phone.
surprise, there's a surprise. You pass
Better
it?
pass
Yeah.
it around.
it. I'll pass it to you. and you can-
This whole discussion has led me to something that I would like to do as soon as possible, and that is hiring a safety, security, and training manager. I think that would be money well spent, and I have a litany of things that this person would be responsible for. And I'll run down them real quick, but facility assessments, just what kind of things can we do to improve the security in our facilities? They would be at every accident, reviewing and making sure that the procedures are being followed. Also assessing, why the accident happened, those types of things. Accident investigation. Risk assessment and claim analysis. I think one thing that we could do long-term is if we get a real handle on all our claims and how they've been processed, we might be able to save on insurance costs down the road. This person would coordinate all training. They would become a trainer in some instances. They would be somebody I would loan out to other systems possibly to generate revenue. They would take over the business continuity plan, which has been hanging over me like a dark cloud. Manage security measures. They would be reviewing video, managing the video system and the door locks. And then they would also provide additional street supervision. So this is something that I want to do sooner than later. I just got to find the money to do it. So, but that's something that I think it will be a very proactive approach before the shoe drops and something really
Would they
stupid
have to have a
happens.
CDL?
Yes, we would have to have a CDL.
The street people, do they ever get on a bus and ride it? They do.
When the task gave the,
Probably don't do it enough, but they do it.
when task gave the board member training a couple times, I know Mr. Wilson's taken it, and I know Ms. D'Angelo's taken it, and I've taken it. The number one responsibility of the board, of a transit board, is safety.
Yes.
So that's something that we need to keep in mind.
Well, and I
Well,
forgot,
new members
here they
should
would
be
also
taking
liaise
that.
with the police departments.
New members should be taking
Yeah.
that
So-
when it's offered.
Brian?
New board members.
They didn't offer it last
So would that
year.
salary be
Yeah, I know.
reimbursable from
Well,
the
they
funding?
keep doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah, it's something that we probably want to wait until what happens with the county budget in March. But, if that looks like it's going to go through, then I'd want to pull the trigger sooner than later.
The purpose today is,
So-
you're not asking to approve the FTE, you're wanting to explore, establish the positions, lay out pretty well what they could do. I'd be more interested in what other agencies could help reimburse, as we loan them out.
Yeah.
I'm for, today, all you want to do is you're letting us know you're exploring the possibility of creating a new position.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
One more thing.
Do you have a third topic?
I do, I'm not even half done.
Oh, this was all in
The
liaison?
Silverman list.
He pulled out his
No,
list
no,
right
no,
before
no,
the
I'm
meeting,
half
remember?
done, I'm probably more than half done. Do you have any word on the county police department's help with shooter training?
I don't. They've definitely said they would do it. I just need to get on the stick and get someone to call. But we will get that training here in short order.
Be
So,
sooner rather than later.
there's a session in Georgetown County that Michelle's going to, and we may try to send Doug as well, just to kind of get an understanding of what it's like. But the county police folks, said that they would tailor it to bus situations and that type of thing. So we'll get on the stick and get you some dates on that.
Miss Lily Jean, are you doing that with the Georgetown EOC? That Sam Hodge is putting together?
Yes,
It would seem you also want to include not just on buses, but in fixed
Oh, yeah.
station stops such as here in downtown.
I mean, the actual training is tailored to buildings and
Yeah.
facilities and things like that. We want to add to it the added details of when you're in motion or
Yeah.
on a vehicle that can move.
Yeah.
The next
I'm
thing we,
interested.
oh,
Go ahead.
the next thing we talked about was the sign project, and we went over the draft. The draft was a draft that Ryan had previously gone over, sent back. They incorporated changes, and then we went over those things. And I don't remember any big changes that anyone had. We discussed some things, and some things were not quite set, but I don't remember any big glaring things.
I think the biggest thing that came out of the conversation, I mean, I think it's a good document, you know, and it's something that we'll refine over time. But what came out of the meeting, which I think is an excellent idea, is to forward this to our planning partners and getting, you know, the public works directors and others to just weigh in on it. And so we're sent it to Bill Oliver in Little Beach. We need to get some folks at the county and City of Conway and in Georgetown County to just read it and tell us what they think. So that'll add to the timeline before we finalize it. But I think it's a good thing to do. We'll send it to GSETs as well.
I have a concern. The detail on this is appropriate for the document as written, and it's what we're expecting from the company. I don't think it's appropriate to have these guidelines be approved by the board of directors. That is a level of detail that is pretty far down in the weeds. Bus block.
I think this was more of an opportunity for you all to weigh in on it, not necessarily to approve it.
Okay, so this was just to get us to read it, as
Yeah,
opposed to.
Yeah, and did you see anything in there that you think it needs?
It's my first time looking at it. I don't want to be responsible for approving each page of this, but I'm happy to be invited to edit and look at
There was
it.
something
Get your
on
title
TV
correct,
that I
it would
saw
be
on
the start.
PBS
Yes.
about this.
I'm sorry?
There was something on PBS or something about bus stops and things that, very similar to this, about how you have so many feet, you know, and I saw it in the last few weeks. I don't know who put it, I guess the Department of Transportation put it in.
I didn't see it.
I'm with Rob. I found it educational, all the stuff in there, but back with Rob, I read it. Here's more technical on the far side of the intersection, this side is informative to me, but,
Yeah, you know, this is just the first product from a pretty big project, and I'm just let you guys weigh in on it. I mean, it was a good thing for service committee to look at it. It's not, you know, and it's in good shape, because I have read it and I bled all over it before you've seen it, so. But it was good, I mean, it was good when I got it, there were some things in there that it needed to have, and there is a policy statement in there, Rob,
Yeah.
that you all will get and do a resolution on.
I see that.
Every once in a while, people ask you about what's going on and different things, and, you know, you have to be knowledgeable.
when there's bogey on that, flag stops, those words were never used. And was there a place to where you don't have shelters, you stop with a sign? I didn't see, there was like
a chart
three,
in there.
there was three things, but didn't ever address the ones to where,
It's just a sign.
yeah.
And
I
that's
see
a
that
comment, that's a comment that we need to give them and say, hey.
We're gonna have a lot of those,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think, especially on Route 16. We have a lot of places,
Yeah,
I looked at those different, phases or categories. So man, they'll address where you just have a sign and know whether bad or, okay.
Well, I went through that thing and I had a few questions, but the one thing that I was wondering about, and Brian said this is not something I should have expected to see, but I don't see their name on it. Doesn't the board think that their name should be on this? We're paying them, they're the experts. I mean, my name's gonna be on it. I mean, they're.
I was a consultant for 15 years, and rarely do you get your name on it.
The auditor has his name on the
Ernie,
material.
we're still working on your plaque.
That's his work, that's an independent auditor. He has to have his name on it. We will give them credit at the back if you really gonna give me a hard time about it. we're paying, this is our product, we paid for that.
You're ready to
And
get
there
a new
used to
car,
be-
you're
there
ready to
used
get
to
a new car,
be
take
the
all
other
the
guys.
cards and paste it on the back.
No, I'm not talking about for me, I know who did it, but, I mean, other people are gonna look at this, they're gonna say, you know, do you do it in-house?
And this
It's
will-
only a draft.
And this
though.
will that can totally show up in their proposal to somebody else for similar work, and we become a reference, and that is sufficient for them.
Well, all right, I believe you, you're the consultant, but to me, I mean, if I did it, I'd write my name on the bottom. I'd write my name on the bottom of everything I did,
Well,
you know? That's all.
some
I design
consultants
things,
have
I
a real
don't
problem
write
with
my
it, but I never did.
Okay,
'Cause it
all
was
right,
required
well,
work.
anyway, that's, I got two other quick things. One is, you told me last time, and I can't remember, but why can't we change the app to show 17? To show the
15
road.
north?
To show, yeah, 15 north. Why can't we change the app to show?
It's in the works, it just
Okay,
hasn't happened yet.
okay.
I'm not sure why it hasn't happened yet, but it's.
Okay.
It was updated recently.
Is
Oh,
it-
it's on,
is it
it's on the
there
book,
now?
it's on 17?
That we're saying on Kings Highway?
Yeah.
Yes. The problem was we did not receive the turn-by-turns until just 2 weeks ago.
No, I saw the notice that you put on there that said, you know, the
So
note.
And then we had to meet and send each thing to the app to be updated after we received the turn-by-turn.
Is that done or it's gonna be done?
It's just been updated in the last 2 weeks.
Okay, good.
As well as adding the glossary, and we're gonna be doing a YouTube link so that anyone who might still need it can
Great, great.
click on that.
It's on there now,
Oh, yeah, good. And,
so it's all.
yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, that's great.
And
Good.
Also, I got, I'm almost done here. And Michelle, by the way, your notes or your updates on the app are good and timely, and they're there when you need them and gone when they're done and stuff. So that's a lot to do, and I
that was
appreciate
quite
that.
an undertaking for us with.
Yeah, the ice took us by surprise a little bit, but.
Yeah, no, I think
you know,
I
I
think
think
you've done a good job
it's
with
not
it.
gonna get that good the rest of the day.
And my last thing, very last thing, is also, I guess, for Michelle in a way, but, and we talked about this in December when we met at that League of Women Voters meeting, but what are we doing to encourage ridership on Bucksport and Loris? We did a lot in the beginning, I know it's hard to sustain it.
And it is. I actually had a meeting with Etta Green when I spoke at travel training yesterday. She does, from time to time, they walk the neighborhoods.
This is someone in Loris?
She's the adult ed director for Horry County.
Oh, I remember her from the
So
meeting, yeah.
when she walks the Finkley Green Sea, I told her to let us know, and we would go out and do a walk. We would create a one
Yeah.
sheeter to make people aware, because like she said, they're having the same issues. They're not subscribing to the media. They're not necessarily on
Yeah.
apps and smart media and everything else. So you're having to do grassroots guerrilla efforts
Yeah.
to get out and beat the streets.
That's GUER.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
The trip to Loris, how frequent?
Not very, it's 3
Yeah.
trips a day. It's one in the morning, one like right after lunch, like a 1 o'clock trip, and then a 5 or 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock
6
from
o'clock
here.
trip.
So it's the
3
5
trips a
o'clock
day, so
from.
it is
Sure,
direction
you
to
want them
Bucksport
back?
too,
Or you want it back?
and Morris.
And is passenger list still the same? Is it still the?
You know,
Or is it-
honestly, I haven't looked at it. I will, I'll make a point to give you all an update in the next service pack.
So Jim, even when because I was between adult ed yesterday and Bone Creek Rehab, I saw right outside of the Conway Meats, right by that church, a couple of people waiting for the 1 o'clock on the Bucksport. You know, so you do see they're waiting on the side of the road for those midday or the end of day. We've got our regulars out here at 6 o'clock waiting to go back to Loris. So I think it's slow on the uptake, and it's just trying to get that word out. And that's like I told the ladies, if you've got places, I'll go talk. It's
Yeah.
just, it's gonna have to be that old school word of mouth way to get into the community because of how you got to do it. And, so,
So we had, in December, we had 123 people on Loris and 185 on Bucksport. So it's.
That's
you can-
coming.
So you can see the numbers up there. So it's, and that's sort of lowest ridership month.
and it's
December.
3 trips a day, Monday through Wednesday, and 2 trips a midday on Saturday.
Oh, that's right, there's no midday on weekends.
Do you think you could, now the lowest go down 701? all the
Goes up
way?
701 to 410, goes over Finkley and then uses Business 9 to get into Loris,
Yeah.
and then back down 701.
To connect here in
What-
time
what,
for
uh,
7 o'clock.
Do you pick up anyone on 701?
A few, not a lot.
And
You
then
know,
that
what I
whole
was
Mostly
thinking
down to
now,
Loris, I think.
if you would
And-
go down to Longs and come down 905, you think you'd have more passengers? I probably could run a survey and find out, you know.
Yeah, we do get a few on 701 in Conway.
Why is it
So once you
over?
got inside 22, I don't know, I mean, I think,
We have the Voc Rehab folks right in there too, don't you?
yeah, Voc Rehab are south on 701, so this is the Loris side.
Oh, you're in the north,
West
north
side.
of
Yeah.
I heard
So
it
the adult ed is up there, and you've got HTC and, you know, a bunch of employers up there. I don't know, we'll have to look at that
And trying to
down the road.
get
I'd
up.
hate to
They have
do a
a
big
whole-
loop.
That's
A lot of people work on the beach out of the Long area. I don't know,
I think we get longs when we do Route 9 service from Loris into North Myrtle Beach. But we need North Myrtle Beach service before we do that,
when you're going from Long to North Myrtle Beach.
at some point.
In the
That's
dream.
That's in our vision.
Dream.
That's in our vision.
Not
That's
yet.
in our vision map. Remember when we had
Yeah,
our-
well, that's, no, you don't have it yet.
Right,
I didn't-
but I think that's when we get service to Longs, because down Route 9, headed in that direction.
And then
headed
you
to
go
North Myrtle
past the
Beach.
hospital.
Yeah.
Hear correctly, since this 15-month thing, people living on any of these routes, they cannot use, you cannot use a 3/4 mile thing as a reason to assess paratransit.
Well, the routes are considered
Yeah.
express,
Yeah,
aren't they?
these are pilot, there's two reasons why we don't have to do
The answer-
paratransit.
the short answer
Pilot,
is
they're-
no.
They're considered express.
I was thinking, I think of two people who live on 905, and from my other volunteer work, but we don't go 905 right now, as he was suggesting, but that would not commit us to doing paratransit anyway, since we're a pilot.
If we were to move over to 905?
Yeah. The issue is where we would go, since it's pilot, we do not have to honor the Fed guidelines on paratransit.
But, you know, when that goes away and we want to continue the service,
Then we would.
then we'll need to think about it, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Do we have anything like brochures in the churches?
We don't currently, we did that speaking engagement and lesson stuff with the Missionary Baptist, but back when we first started, but I just don't have contacts enough to, so if anyone has contacts, I'll be happy to. I've got the flyers.
Okay.
I just don't know,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, definitely.
We are gonna be doing
I'll
some
do that.
surveys on the routes, coming up, because that's part of the grant. And we'll get a little bit of information about who's using it. Maybe they know of some folks out there that, you know, could use it the darn for any number of reasons, and.
So-
You know, when I
we
leave
can
my
tweak.
house in River Hills, there's a church there, your cousin, is, that church, as you come out of River Hills.
Central.
Yeah, there is 12, by the time I get to Conway, there are 12 churches, I have counted
That's
them.
right, I have two.
12
There's
churches.
13 from 90 to Robert Edge, 13 churches.
Mm.
Counted them
On 90.
on 90,
On 90.
on 13.
And not only that, on the 90 extension, that comes out at 17 up at Little River.
There's even more, I didn't count those. I
Yes,
counted all the way back,
yes.
13 churches.
Yeah, that's the way to really get information.
And I wanna know,
and that's
and,
not what the
Well, I
Title
wanna
VI
know
with the Spanish.
Yeah, but
But the
you know,
problem is,
when
they don't
a
mean
lot
on
of people are so
Sundays. I can
poor,
go
who's
and drop things
supporting
off
these
to
churches? I don't understand that.
I just, that's
Yeah,
totally fine,
I know.
then I can drop things
As
off.
far as,
They're all-
as far as the
I think
service
so.
committee, you're out of
So
order.
if I can get it with
Yeah.
the.
Yeah.
Drop things.
Right, right, that's fine, yeah.
Well, I was about to, but Brian, you made a note on your pad a minute ago.
Yeah.
Your usual response is, I'll get back to you on that at the next meeting, and you made a note that you were gonna get back about the Loris Bucksport runs, and then you went up to the screen and got those statistics. Is there anything more that you're gonna get at the next meeting? Like finding out if they're the same people that are riding? Is that what I think the
Well,
gist
I
of
mean,
the question
I guess
was?
the only other thing is we have discussions, you said you had a discussion with the lady at Voc, or Adult Ed coming up?
Well, she and I met yesterday.
Oh, you
And
met
she-
yesterday.
Yeah, so, because I did 2 hours of travel training, and she and I met, then I went to Voc Rehab and
So,
had lunch.
so the only other update would be our efforts on guerrilla warfare.
Yeah, whenever she
Okay.
schedules that, Finkley you know.
But yeah, it just sort of hit me that I could go get the ridership.
I'm going to make a suggestion. I don't think it's out of order, but as you are in these meetings with us, I really would like to have two of you take notes of what you're making a commitment to get back on. I don't think you get it in time when you're doing the minutes, because you're on that kind of a delay there, but just to protect you, Brian, if either Lynette or Michelle or somebody would just sort of make a corresponding check mark on these commitments, because I could,
So
I
cashing the
have-
checks that I'm writing.
yeah, I have watched you get overwhelmed by your good-natured, yeah, I'll get back to you on that, it's sort of the Sarah Sanders Huckabee thing. But here, I think that's more important than in that particular venue. That is a dodge as far as I'm concerned. This is just where I think it's just gonna help you stay organized if you
I
have
mean,
I got you.
a
Lynette and I
second
do
check.
that
Yeah.
to a certain extent, but you're right, we can always get better at it.
Anything else on service and PAC?
No, I'm done unless Lily Jean or Brian have something. We're adjourned.
Again, I regret missing it. It sounded like a very interesting thing.
Yeah, actually, I have one other thing. I was asked at that meeting about the funding associated with it, and right now,
What is the it?
with the bus stop study, I guess we did move on to Loris and Bucksport, but this document is coming out of Task Order 1, which is a $100,000 task order. It includes this document, all the data collection they're gonna do on different locations throughout the system for buses, and then an implementation plan. So I told them they can bill me basically for 75% of that, which I don't remember what the portion of it is. But we get those sort of planning functions done. That's funded from, that's $80,000 in PL funds from the state and 20,000 local. And so then go ahead.
What's the next thing that's gonna happen? When can we expect it to
I
happen?
have a meeting with them tomorrow to talk about that exact thing, and I'll send you all out an email on that discussion. But it's really gonna be scheduling
Write that
to,
down,
yeah,
Brian.
Lynette's writing it down. It will be a discussion about, moving towards the implementation plan. I'll let them know that, we're essentially gonna let this sit for a little while we get some comments from our planning partners. And I'll get you some dates on when they're gonna be here, when they're gonna be collecting their data, and just their efforts moving towards an implementation plan. And so then the only other thing in the hopper related to this project is a grant for 5307 funds for $140,000. I think I had 150 in I think I saw 150 in the resolution, so maybe we'll make it 150. And that is for that's for task order 2, which will include the beginnings of implementation of bus signs installation. And so I estimate that 150 will go beyond September 30th. It'll be, go beyond this fiscal year, but it should be good for 75 to 100 stops.
Okay.
And then there will be another 150 after that. And if we need another 150 after that, we will try to make that happen, so.
And those are from the same sources?
Those are, it'll be 5307 or 5339, which is bus and bus facilities, it's eligible expense over that. We have some money sitting there at RTA under that program as well, so. And the local match will be hopefully coming from Georgetown County. They're talking about getting us some money for capital in their budget moving forward. But then also we should have local funding just from increases in funding in Horry County to match it.
So
Did we
as,
get-
I'm sorry.
Did we get a date on when we're going to start getting signs up?
We haven't. I don't think we will until we get this implementation plan.
Are we talking about this year or next year?
I think we're talking about this year.
Okay.
So we should begin to see bus stop project in the budget then as we go forward, unless you're envisioning it all being done with, temporary funds. But I think I picked up a little tone from somebody that said this is gonna go on for a long time.
Yes,
Probably 3 fiscal years.
easily.
And so we should begin to kind of capture that as a funded project at the budget level as
Yeah,
well.
it'll show up on the income sheet, income statement.
And you'll designate it as Project Bus Stop.
Right.
And it-
Remember that little schedule there below on page 2 that has all our capital projects?
Mhm.
That's where you'll start seeing it.
Yeah.
And it'll show up in the revenue,
Okay.
in the revenue side of things.
You mentioned Bill Oliver, Myrtle Beach, he's
Yeah.
the planning commission.
Yeah, he's a public works director.
Well, I bring it up, there's a group of ARP people on an initiative for livable communities, they had a big meeting in New Orleans 3 weeks ago, and they came back with, they're gonna push, we need signs and shelters. I said, you know, guys, this is already working here. But I just, they've been meeting with someone at Myrtle Beach, I didn't hear Bill's name.
Yeah, no, they're with Carol, I think, in the planning department, or her
Okay.
staff, and we'll engage them as well.
Do.
I think both of those entities, especially as it relates to signs in Myrtle Beach, ought to be part of like a steering committee.
Okay.
And so if the AARP wanna join in.
Well, they already have, and I just thought, any help is great, but there's a lot going on, and I'd like to believe that the people you're working with already knows what we're doing, so they don't be out in front of their headlights.
Yeah,
Or I think they had some value, it'd be great, I'm not trying to put them down, but I said, this is not a new idea of the need, and there's been a lot of money already expended getting there. We're gonna ride buses and tell you where you need to stop. I said, well, our bus drivers pretty well know where we pick up people already, but, okay.
Well, at our next service committee that has like a new development and signage program, maybe when this draft is finished, whatever, we might invite the planning people from Myrtle Beach to come to that
Yeah.
meeting.
yeah.
That's a good idea.
Do we still have shelters that were in storage somewhere?
Yes, we have a few, I mean, I know we have about 15 with the city of Myrtle Beach, and there's still 1 or 2 with Georgetown City.
Are they handicap accessible?
Yeah, for the most part, they're pretty open. It's not,
They're all open.
Probably more on what it's put on than
Yeah.
the shelter
yeah,
itself. then.
yeah, that's really more where the regs speak
When
to.
you said we don't own them,
I
but,
thought they were in
But
pieces.
they're out there for us.
gotcha.
Oh, I thought they were in pieces, no?
Well, they're not completely assembled necessarily,
Okay,
but
alright.
they're with the city of Myrtle Beach Public Works, and I think it's the city planning
And how
department
did
in
they get them?
Georgetown.
I don't
They got them
remember.
from
They-
GSAP
They
at an
got
auction.
them.
Oh,
Yeah, they
from,
were
they got them from, that's
purchased
right,
from
that's right.
Gov Deals.
So why are you calling them
That's
out?
right.
It's because they.
Well, they've dedicated them
They're
to our
for
service.
us.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I
Or
remember
they
now.
placed them, and the city placed 2 at the Piggly Wiggly stop, and I
Yeah.
don't think they placed any more, right?
There's 2 on
Is it still
21st
at 2?
Avenue.
In
Where was the
Georgetown,
one you were
City of
talking about was
Georgetown?
they've
falling
already got
apart?
our four places.
That was
They're all
on
placed.
that street on Spivey Street where that young pregnant woman was murdered about 3 months ago and a car hit it.
Oh, and they haven't done anything about it yet?
No, it's still the way it was.
Well, and the city's approached us about it, and I informed them that it's not ours, and that's actually the school system's.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Someone needs
but
to
I,
fix it.
but I need, Bernie and I were talking about it before the meeting.
sold it
I'm
to
gonna
them.
call John back and say, hey, if you wanna use one of those other ones that you have for us and replace it, go for
Yeah.
it.
They're the ones we sold to them.
Yeah, but someone needs to fix that one, unless the community wants it that way as a memorial or something, which,
Yeah, I don't
Which
think that's
surprised
the
me,
sentiment,
but,
yeah, I don't think that's
I
the
don't
sentiment.
think, I don't think it's a good publicity for us to have it. sit there
no, it's
now.
not, it looks terrible, it's been crushed by a car.
The only other thing on the guidelines is that we may need to increase the planning budget at some point if we're gonna add new routes.
Oh,
So I'll have to
absolutely.
go out and collect that data.
That should be a part of the cost of a new route.
And so that's
which-
within the purview of the contract, and, you know, it's a 5-year contract, so we got time.
Okay. All right, let's move on.
Excuse me,
I
Mr.
think we're
Chairman,
done
before
with
we
service.
move on. Georgetown, you said there are 2 more areas for signs and,
Actually,
The city of
He
Georgetown.
was thinking that there were 2 more shelters, but those shelters were put up by that Taco Bell area.
yes.
So that he didn't realize that those had been installed.
so there's
Those-
4 that are up. And does the county still have some?
I don't know.
The
They-
county
they
placed
both-
one in Andrews, right?
So I'll check.
I don't know that we've ever done any of them.
There's one in Andrews, right? No? They were trying to site one out there.
Maybe it would be helpful if we got a list of where the shelters are and where the
Well, now,
shelter
some of
pieces
these
are.
aren't gonna be for us, they were gonna be for the school district or for some of the other rec center
Oh,
usage.
okay.
Yeah, they weren't necessarily for Coast RTA usage.
We will get that when we get our bus stop.
Okay. All right, let's move on to Finance Committee.
Absolutely.
Marvin, you're on.
I'm on, okay. So we had a pretty straightforward meeting. We looked at both the November and December financials from last year. November financials were pretty straightforward. We didn't have very much. There's still some volatility in the salaries that are explained on the details page. December, same thing with the salaries, especially when we look at the overtime. And again, you'll see tuition reimbursement and things like that explained. The one thing from December that I think was brought to our attention, or we at least noticed, we still have a little bit of an issue with the cash balance. I think it's better than it was. The only scary part there was just in March. And I think Brian and Ron do have a game plan in mind if we get to that situation. So I'm looking at page 8B from the December financials. And it was a little scary to see red on the cash balance. So, but again, that I think was just, again, these are estimates. So when we get to that point, I think, again, if there's an issue, there's the ability to draw a little earlier on a couple of those funding pieces. So hopefully it won't be bad when we get there. I don't know, Brian, you want to speak to anything there?
I don't think so. It got a little scary last week when the government shut down. Because we do have a grant that's in process and is being reviewed. And if nobody in the government is working, then no one can review it. It's sort of like a yogiism, right? But they're back, I guess, so I'm less concerned about that now. So that is the critical piece at this
Start
point.
being concerned in 15 more days.
50, yeah. Well, hopefully we get it approved in that. And the only heavy lift with that has been we've had to submit a new DBE goal, which if you saw the math for that, you would go, why are we doing all this? But the math is done. It hasn't been submitted yet. It'll be submitted probably tomorrow. And once it gets into review, then they can move forward with the grant. So it doesn't have to be approved, it just has to be in there for review. So that's been the hiccup point for me on that. But getting that grant up and running is perfect for the cash.
Two comments on finance, but DB, while you're on that first, I recall that our goal for DB was so low, we so far and easily exceeded it. We had discussion at this table, and I was saying, Bernie said, that we need to raise our goal, because we're meeting it so easily, maybe our goal's too low. And the conversation was, if that's good, that we don't want to set so high we fail in the future and get a major write-up. So back to where we're at with all of this.
That's actually why the math is so complicated, because what they do is they make you really do two things. They make you look at the availability of disadvantaged business enterprises. And we've always taken the race neutral. So all you do is really looking at size of company. So companies that earn less than 7.5 million a year, which is still a pretty good sized company. But there's not a lot that, there's a bunch that are under 100,000. And you look at the percentage of those types of companies versus all companies. And then you have to break out the ones that are in the industrial codes that you will be able to use. So hairdressers, we don't use those, so we're gonna take that code out of the mix. There's 80, 90 some odd codes that you gotta look through. And so then you take a look at how much money you're gonna spend over the next 3 years that is even eligible for disadvantaged business enterprises, which is basically the bus stop study, parts and inventory, any due diligence we get moving on a new facility would be subject to that. And then there's a litany of other smaller ones that you move down. So there's a spreadsheet for culling out the right industrial codes. There's a spreadsheet for your amount of money that you have and how much, percentage-wise you're going to use for DBEs. And then you combine those two to come up with your goal.
Okay, gotcha. I'm supportive of the DB initiative. I
Right.
understand what the philosophy of why it's there, but are you suggesting in past years, those kinds of complications and?
I don't know how it was developed
Got, okay.
in
With-
past years.
So you're doing it the right way,
So we're
for the spirit
kinda
and intent of
starting
the
over.
law. Okay, good. That's fine.
And we barely met the 1% line in 2017. So that is of concern.
We did.
But I can
we
hard code,
forecasted.
I can hard code some projects, like this project has already been awarded, and I know there's gonna be a certain percentage of DBEs on that.
Okay.
So for this particular project, I'll put 20%
Okay.
in there, because I know it'll happen, it'll probably be higher than that. And so that will go into our mix, and so that 1% will go up, and we'll have a really good chance of meeting
Okay,
it.
gotcha. Second comment on finance, we talked about a finance committee, about our salaries and benefits are over 3.7%. One of the causes is payout of vacation time. I'm gonna say it again. When you got here, you saw so many people have amassed so much backlog of stuff that if they ever quit, we know such a lump sum amount of money, we don't want, we wanted, and that's one thing. That's why we got into it to begin with shortly after your arrival. The other part is, workers need to take time off to spend time with their family. They need to draw down this vacation time over time for their own well-being. But selfishly, it also doesn't leave you with a big stuck thing when they leave our employment, we have a big buyout. So sooner or later, the buying out of vacation time should be less of a driver to why our salaries and benefits are over budget. Hopefully, people are starting to plan, and that should not, to me, should not be the reason why we're over budget. They should be taking it as they accrue it. The kids are out of school in the summer, and they should take it. This time next year, I like that's not the reason why we're over budget in salaries and benefits.
Well, you have to have rules, you have to have rules.
Yeah.
We do.
And we're working towards those.
We do.
I think the maintenance one, we might have under budgeted.
Okay, all right.
we
Okay, my point is,
replaced
over
one person
time,
with
that
two
should not be the driver. People should be taken as they accrue
And
it.
that is a significant part of the
It
overages.
was maintenance that was over budget, and it was a function of having somebody out. And so then you had to move to overtime in maintenance.
Well, no, it's not,
It-
that was last year, that was the case, but this year, it's been, I think we're a little under budget. We had one mechanic leave, we hired another mechanic
At a higher rate.
At a higher rate, and then we also hired a technician.
Right.
So that, I think we budgeted a little bit in that side of the house. We also are doing, we've had a significant amount of payouts for tuition
Okay.
assistance.
That's good.
What
That's
the
good.
tuition is, where
Who's
they,
going to
who's using the
class?
tuition assistance?
We couldn't talk about that in executive session, I
Okay.
think that's a personal
All right, put
question.
that.
Yeah, but what kind
Put that on
of
the
tuition? Is it HGTC
It's,
kind of technical work?
Yeah, it's HTC,
Okay.
HTC mostly.
All right. Brian, you had a couple of other items that were discussed in finance. You may want to move them to the manager's report. The entertainment shuttle was discussed, the strategy for Myrtle Beach vis-à-vis
Yeah.
the tag money. I don't know where you want to do that.
That's in our next piece of it. There's the discussion of our funding outlook.
Okay,
So
Marvin.
we're still in
then
finance with that though.
I'll leave it up to you to guide that conversation if you want to hear our manager's report.
Yeah. Any other discussion though on financials, the November or December financials? All right, so again, the second item that we had a big discussion about was the funding outlook. So we talked a little bit about the outlook from Georgetown County, Ward County, the city of Myrtle Beach, as well as, our, I guess, new strategy on the ATAX. So I think that's a discussion that we should have. Brian, are you comfortable doing that now, or?
Yeah. I guess a couple things came out of the discussion. One thing I wanted to show y'all, and unfortunately I have these printout, but they didn't print out right.
Okay.
Here's one if you need to see it, Bernie, but it's one column printed on the wrong sheet, so.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna turn out the lights here and kind of point to this conversation. We'll roll in the conversation about entertainment shuttle into the conversation, but given what the county is talking about doing, I feel like we have enough money to run the entertainment shuttle. I think it makes some sense to charge a
Could I ask the question, when you make that statement, we have enough money to do that, are you assuming that we are also getting the fixed payment from the city of Myrtle Beach, that $350,000?
Yes,
Plus their earnings per registered vehicle?
yes.
Okay.
And I think that the entertainment shuttle should be a fairly prominent part of the discussion when we talk to them about that. I essentially talked to the committee about essentially tabling our ATAX efforts till next year. I think the whole ATAX process was not a fun one by any stretch of the imagination. And I don't really feel like we were received very well, and I have my theories on why that is, but, sorry, just make sure everybody knows that this is draft. I think that, the amount of money coming to us via the county's new proposal from the city of Myrtle Beach is right on the number for how much the entertainment shuttle is. So I think that we can sort of table the discussion for this year, although I would like to go to the Hospitality Association about implementing a prepaid fare program. So we would charge a fare on the service. I think our target revenue for it would be in the $40,000 to $50,000 range. I don't think you're gonna get $1 per rider and keep the riders at the same type of thing. I don't have a lot of good information for you yet on what that fare structure might look like. But in a letter to the Hospitality Association, we just want to open up the dialogue and talk to them about the possibility of weekly passes, 5-day, like an extended weekend type of pass. We could do multiple riders, like a family pass type of thing, all of which we have the wherewithal to do, and we have some semblance of these passes already in the hopper. So we wouldn't want to be too aggressive on things that we don't think our fare structure or fare system can handle. But then we'd also look at the possibility of either doing a summer-long pass or a monthly pass for workers. And so the strategy would be, yeah, we're going to charge a fare on it, but we want the bulk of the riders to have some sort of pass and not be paying cash fare, because we don't want to be feeding the fare box and slowing that service down. I think that'll really degrade service more than we want it to, as long as we can minimize that. I also need to do some research on the federal regs on what the fare has to be. It is a shorter trip, it is a specialized trip, so we may be able to get away with a smaller fare than the base fare, but I need to verify that. If we go to the $150 base fare, that might be a way to go to encourage people to use a pass, because we could really put deep discounts on the passes and make it unlimited rides and those types of things for those types of passes.
Do we have, do our fare boxes and our drivers have the capability of selling a pass to somebody? Because I don't think they're gonna go to Piggly Wiggly and buy it.
Yeah, well, no, and I think that's part of the letter to the Hospitality Association. We would need their help. We would need hotels to have people prepay for their passes. We would need help from the Ripley's folks and things like that. So there's a lot that would have to go into that whole process in order to make this as much as a prepaid fare as possible, and that's why we gotta start that conversation now.
Our passengers, can passengers now buy a day pass from the driver? No, I don't think they do that.
That's why they don't get used. So maybe this is a way to increase the number of vendors for our passes, at least in the summertime.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna get tourists to go to Piggly Wiggly. It's not even Piggly Wiggly in Myrtle Beach, it's Andrews and Georgetown, right?
We only have the operations center, and that's really just for students, right, for the most part?
Yeah, and they haven't sold in, so Kathy wants me to get those back.
And our transfer center can't sell them.
So a pretty heavy lift on this. So we need to think about it, but we're gonna need their help. So we need to start that conversation. Maybe in that conversation we hit somebody and they say, oh, well, why don't we just give you the money up front?
Why are we,
See how that
why are
goes.
we doing this?
Well,
We spent $220,000 for the show, right?
Paid first.
That's what it cost us?
the reason why I think we should do this is to set up the conversation for next year. Because, we need to let people know that our funding does not match up to providing this type of service.
So really it's our best interest if they would listen to us up front and realize this is not good for either one of us. Not good for tourists, not good for slowing down bus routes, and the daily amount of money we're gonna get really is not in our best interest, is it?
Right. So I think depending on how the stats bear out for the service, we can show the ATAX committee, this is why we didn't charge a fare in the first place.
We have, what, 67,000 riders?
Yeah.
Right, I don't think the ATAX committee is gonna be different than next year. My sense of the ATAX conversation, and I'm thinking about it since then, it is really more entertainment focused, and, you know, they wanna bring in the Country Music Festival, they wanna bring in the arts stuff. For some reason, they just cannot see this as connected to the entertainment side, so it kind of leads me to my next question, which may be kind of where Daryl was going. You're a small staff. You're a tall person, but you're a small staff. You don't have a whole lot of extra people hanging around to set the system up. We are going into February 1. Is it in fact realistic that you can set this whole fare system up, sell it, get it marketed? Or at the end of the day, are you gonna come back and say, you know, we tried, we just couldn't pull this off? I'd rather just be as realistic as we can about that. Yes, send something to the hotel people. Maybe what you're saying is this is the last year, this is the last summer that we're doing this for free, but a fare system is necessary and has to go in place. We might have boxed you into a corner that you really think you need to do this for summer of 18, and there's a part of me that thinks you should, and there's another part of me that thinks you cannot.
Right.
Because of just the, you know, you're a small staff that is primarily service driven. Take the mechanics out of the picture, take the bus drivers out of the picture, take the what do we call that, service people?
Customer service?
Who?
Customer service?
Yeah, take the customer service people out of the picture. I don't think you're left with a whole lot of people to pull this off in that time frame. So I guess I asked the board also to think about this, whatever your response is. How realistic is this?
Well, it is a difficult situation. The timing with the city is kind of crazy. There is a February 9th opportunity to get in front of city council and ask for ATAX money again.
Which I still think is the wrong thing to do.
Which is ahead of when we're supposed to go in front of the city council workshop, budget workshop on the 27th or 20th, somewhere. And so, you know, going and saying, okay, we need 75,000 or we need 225,000 in ATAX funding, I felt like that was really muddying the waters for when we go in and talk about, hey, we want to, we're getting this now based on the county, what the county's doing, but I still need this to sort of keep things rolling. And to me, this was a bigger picture item than the entertainment shuttle.
Yes.
We got that message.
And so the entertainment shuttle, yes, we could say, okay, this is the last year we're gonna run it. You know, when we could go to the advertisers and try to generate some, you know, redouble our efforts on generating some revenue. There was,
Better use the pipeline.
there was some groundswell on that.
They didn't come and say, oh, you're just visit that.
Yeah.
I have a question. Are you
Taking this off our plate like that would be really helpful. I agree with what you're saying. I just, I'm holding on to the entertainment shuttle because, as I said in a meeting a while ago, this is the last bastion of transit that we have in this region that is really how transit works. This is, I mean, we're taking so many cars off the road with this service, and it's just in a core area. You know, we're improving public safety, and ATAX is the answer. It's where we ought to be getting the money. It's the number 5 on the list of 8 projects that are generally accepted under that program.
So let's say you want to have an entertainment shuttle or something like it here in Georgetown and in North Myrtle. You want to have a loop that people can get on and get off during this key system. So if you're thinking of it from that point of view, you're really designing 3
systems that would have more pay-as-you-go capacity in some way, shape, or form than just the one. And again, February,
Well, and if we
Really not to
lose
the
the
end of
one, then we don't have anything to show the other two
yeah.
how well this thing works.
Right. So it would seem that the reform, the big reform should be, and just me, I'll shut up in summer 19, not summer 18.
Okay.
I don't know, if other people think differently.
I agree with you, Rob. I don't think you can do it. I don't think you can modify the entertainment show between now and May 1st.
It is
or
heavy
Memorial
lift.
Day.
Yeah, it is heavy lift. Yes,
I don't think, I mean, with the systems you have now, I think it's gonna be pretty difficult, but are there any ways to turn on features on the app to allow purchases of fares through the smartphone or things like that would make it so much easier
Not
than,
at the moment.
yeah.
Not at the moment.
Is that something that they can provide or?
Well,
is
you
that-
know, on our, you know, 300, number 373 on the 400 things we have to do is a fare structure analysis, and that's gonna involve a significant investment in fare collection equipment. The fare boxes they're done. They still have some equity in them, so we gotta run them for a little while. But we've gotta replace that technology to really have any kind of improvement in the sales of it. And, you know, one thing we could work on is a method for selling them down at the transit center, because that would be huge for us, and that would really make an influx of people prepaying their fare as opposed to using cash.
How about like a short-term thing on the fare box, if you get on the Entertainment Express and pay, say, $1 or $1.50, whatever, the driver gives you what amounts to a transfer that's used on that same bus. Is that possible? So it's, you know, buy one, get one free.
So it's like for $1.50, free rides all day kind of thing.
Well, or 3 rides for $1.50, I don't know, some deal.
Well, and the other option would be just doing like 50 cents and just, you know, make it cash and not do anything, and that won't, I mean, that probably wouldn't deter as many folks. I think having a little bit of leeway on this would help, and it's just getting in there and trying to convince the Hospitality Association that we need help on this. And none of my funding sources match up to this type of service. And we could not do it, but the benefits have to speak to somebody out there.
We're borrowing a lot of money, but we're only borrowing it to stay cash solvent. You could also say we're paying back a lot of money. The question is this, in the grand scheme of things, is running it for one more summer without new revenue, is that gonna influence the money borrowing or the adjusting that you're trying to do, right?
It shouldn't. No, it shouldn't. I don't think it has an impact. I mean, the other part of this conversation is I wanted to show you sort of the beginnings of this model on how our funding is going to get distributed as a result of this road use fee option. We have the bigger issue on the cash side is when does this kick in?
Yeah.
Because if it's July 1 and that's when they start collecting it, I think they collect it at January every year, basically, December, January, or is it during registrations?
No, it's December,
It's part,
January.
you pay it with your ad valorem tax.
You pay, you get the bill in about November and
Yeah.
you get a discount until you pay for it.
So they have FY, or calendar year 18's revenue. But I'm not sure when this kicks in. Is it gonna be a check every month, or is it gonna be quarterly, or how's it gonna work?
Justin had all those answers.
Does Mark need to pass any legislation to make this happen? Does Mark need any legislation passed?
Legislation?
Yeah.
It needs to approve the budget.
Okay, all right.
And it's in the budget
And
for
when
their
is that,
consideration.
May?
The first reading is in March.
They won't get it until June.
It won't get approved officially until June.
Brian, we talked about, I remember talking about the entertainment shuttle for this year, way back when we were at HTC last summer. So now there's a lot of new irons in the fire with this vehicle tax thing. So do you think it's possible to make modifications and make a change and make a fee and get everybody on board with this thing?
You mean on the fare structure?
Yeah, by April, by May.
Michelle's shaking her head.
What is she saying, yes or no?
She's saying no. I think she's right. I think it'll be a pretty heavy lift, and we got too many other things going on.
So,
Can I recap what I think I've heard in the last 7 or 8 minutes? The worst thing we do is jeopardize the 352. Anything
Yes.
we do now until, the worst thing that happens is we do something to screw around with the 352 because of the 216.
And I feel like
Uh,
one thing I can convince council on is that we need to keep both of these
Right.
because of the
The
entertainment
next thing
shuttle.
is, we got to put a marker down, because even, I don't think there's enough time to muck around with their teams. They, I understand, this is the last year we can continue doing the way we've always done it. It can't go on for free forever, but we don't have enough months to make something else happen. Mucking around with people putting 50 cents, $1 in the fare box slows down the thing, that's not the desired outcome either. It'd be nice if the industries would find a way to prepay fees so we don't caught up in all this fare box crap. Next, not this season, I think we're too late for this year, quite frankly.
Can we move some of this discussion to executive session as a contractual matter?
yes.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Contract with whom?
Well, we're talking about contracts with the city of Myrtle Beach,
Yeah,
and I'd rather have that
yeah,
conversation.
yeah,
They
yeah,
are bad. We could just go into executive session now if others want, but
yeah.
it feels pretty contractual.
Okay.
Yeah.
So somebody want to move to go into executive session? Or you want to go
I
like-
move we go into executive session.
I second.
Can you move as the chair?
I think I can move
Yeah,
this
I
here.
can.
I'll move way over here. Let's just get the here.
Got to ask for discussion and a vote.
Pardon?
Got to ask for discussion and a vote.
All right. I'm not really in the right chair to do this, but is there any discussion? All those in favor of going into executive session, please say aye. Opposed? All right. All right, for those who are here, all those in favor of coming out of executive session,
Something on Monday. so
we
I'm
had
sure you-
no votes, no decisions were made. All in favor of coming out of executive session, please say.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Do you all want any more explanation on this? This is total work in progress.
I think we get the feel for the gist of it.
Yeah, and understand its complexities. Okay. No questions?
No, not for me.
You shared this outside this room with what peoples?
John Peterson so far.
Okay, good. The public is aware of
But
what's on the
everybody
screen.
is, we're trying to take full disclosure on this.
Okay.
And it's just been, when I go back to the urban, it's just the urban side.
Well, and Mr. Lazarus too, right?
We haven't sat in front of this table yet, but we need to. So, and there's a lot of work to be done on that and how we're dividing, because technically the federal funds are by population, using the number of vehicles as a proxy for that. Should basically be about the same, but I need to go look at what the population is. And, for instance, the population in Myrtle Beach might be a little higher because there's less automobile ownership.
But Ivory's got 5 vehicles, so I
Right,
think so.
and there's a lot of people with 18 vehicles out in the county, so, that was a big split in there that hasn't been vetted yet, is how many of the cars are in the rural area versus the urbanized area. So I gotta figure that out. So there's a lot of math to be done on that. So that was it for finance.
I hate to tell you that one of our daughters has now got Massachusetts plate, so we're down one vehicle from 5 to
Oh,
4.
man, we need the money.
So if you're out of school or anything and you see an out-of-state plate, though, let us know.
Yes,
Yeah, we
yes,
did
yes.
6
Write it
We're
down.
asking for the $6.
We just say, hey,
Boy circle.
either I turn you in or you write me a check for $6.58.
Lois has been
That
doing
is for
that for
fashion.
years.
Okay, are we ready for GM report?
Yes.
All right, I think we already kind of talked about this a little bit already, but I just wanted to let you know that, there are some opportunities for expanding service as a result of this new funding mechanism. And so we probably as a board need to meet to discuss priorities. I know, I heard you all today, but I think that, we should probably, maybe at the next service committee, have a really good conversation about, kind of what the benefits are and the costs associated with expanding in different directions. Obviously, the goal would be moving towards the board vision. I think it still relates. that vision is basically, and I'll have the map up for, you know, for whenever we discuss it. But I think that it provides coverage, you know, it's a coverage system, makes all the connections we need to make. It's not necessarily the highest ridership system that we could do, but, you know, connecting all those dots on the map will be important as we move forward.
I think Carolina Forest will continue to be a inaccessible
Yeah,
neighborhood.
it's tough. I mean, there's one where we have not a lot of benefit and a lot of cost. So, you know, maybe it moves down the chart, but
Well,
there's ways to at least serve the
Either
periphery.
side of it, you know, they're talking today about Gardner Lacey through to International Boulevard in today's paper, but either side of it, but the accident rate is so high in there just with vehicles, just.
Somebody was just hit them on a bicycle.
Yep.
Killed.
They're not a separate city, so it would.
Yeah, but they're in the unincorporated part of Horry County, which
Yeah.
is, and a big contributor.
Yeah.
So we need to think about how we move forward on that. So, yeah, I just think we ought to have a series of get-togethers where we're talking about that and that alone. Last bastion of the FMO is dealing with these Navistar International vehicles, and we have had our conversation with the dealers that sold us those vehicles, and they gave us an option of giving us about $7,000 a piece for our vehicles and charging us basically $58,000 a piece for the two used vehicles that they have. That is not the deal that we're looking for. I'm now in the process of moving up the chain to talk to somebody about the fact that they sold us some serious lemons, and we need to close the gap on that deal. And I have a goal in mind, but I don't want to say it in public. Any questions on internationals?
What is our federal equity in them?
205,000. So.
For both of them?
For both of them. If we have to, right now we have approval, we have a letter from FTA basically saying, okay, Brian, you got 6 months to deal with this. And so at the end, by June 1st, we either have to have a deal where we've transitioned the equity from these vehicles to new vehicles, or we gotta pull down essentially $200,000 in grant money from some source, probably 5339. Where we have it, but it'll be a huge hurt to the system.
So if we traded in a vehicle and got $7,000 for a $50,000 vehicle, we would not then have to pay FTA on top of that. It would just be
We can
transferred.
avoid paying them, but we're gonna have to buy the vehicles.
Right.
So, you know, we're essentially trading $100, you know, if we did this deal, it would be essentially a little over $100,000 in local funds versus $200,000 in federal funds.
Right.
I gotta get that number down to something lower.
But if you, with 5339 is part of the funding source for task 2 of the bus sign implementation. So that's where we'd really be hit near term hurt, if that's the route we end up having to go.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
probably losing year 3 of that to do it.
Okay.
So it's not a good situation. You know, maybe it's we turn one in and we buy one of these vehicles. You know, there's lots of middle ground that we need to talk to, but I think it's lost on creative bus sales is the fact that, you know, I got 80,000 miles on these vehicles in 4 years, and replaced 2 engines, some of which was done on warranty, but they're just pieces of junk, and they need to do a little better than what they
And
talked
Region
about
4
doing.
FTA has never.
How much did they offer?
Give us a waiver or
No.
sorry, or.
No. It's on us. 7,000 apiece.
You could turn it into a small house for somebody.
We ought to talk. We already talked about the audit.
Tiny house.
Audit's going really well. There is a delay in the audit. On GASB 68, they're waiting for the latest release of the outlook for that, so which is supposed to come out later on this month. I'm wondering though, do you all need to hear from them if there's no findings? Do you want them here to ask them questions or anything
I
like that?
don't want to sit through another one of those.
Yeah, well, I don't think it would be like that.
I do, what are you talking about?
Oh, he does.
I'm
He
sorry, we
does.
should have left that up to you.
Yeah, we could, you know, we were setting them up for coming to finance possibly,
Have
but,
them come February when I won't be here.
yeah.
I think we should ask Marvin about that call. I mean,
Yeah.
They can come and find us.
I might have to have a hemorrhoidectomy right around.
Right about it.
Just you let me know and I'll.
Root canal and.
Well, we may not be ready for the February finance, it might have to be March for finance, but we'll see how that goes. And you can look at it first before you need to ask.
Brian, back to the comment about we need to have the discussion. We did not have a retreat this past summer. We could schedule something for March or April. We could schedule a Saturday morning or something like that.
That would be awesome, if we could do it in that type of format.
The end of March.
I think you want to go through your February
The end of March.
meetings.
Okay,
Yeah, the end of March, early April.
Yeah, because 17th is the parade, and that's,
Okay.
well, and it'll give you some time to kind of,
Listen, Lynette, could you try to
Figure
get
this out.
something scheduled last week or so of March or April?
yeah.
I suppose it could substitute for the March full board meeting if our schedule was, or we could just do it first week of April.
okay,
Okay.
Whatever.
either way works for us.
And we'll focus on route planning. We'll focus on
Yeah.
not broad-based retreat, but just basically focus on prioritization.
Easter is Sunday, April the
Mhm.
Pardon?
1st. Easter is April the 1st.
Here's
Yep,
Michelle.
it is, it's
Johnny on the
early.
spot.
Well, it is early this year. Okay.
My
Um,
granddaughter's here, so they don't.
Is there any objection to doing it here?
Hmm?
Is there any objection to doing it here?
No, not for me.
Any objection to doing it here?
No, not at all.
Fine.
Okay,
We get the carpet fixed.
we'll work on that.
Water stains fixed.
We are about to award on the payroll services contract. I want to get you all a resolution for the February board meeting to approve that. I won't tell you who won it yet, since all the parties haven't been told yet.
How many offers?
We had 3 bids, we interviewed 2, and we picked 1. And it
It's
will
better this time
include
around.
automated timekeeping. They wowed us with some of the options on that.
Good.
And really, right now, the only sticking point is can they upload directly to Sage? And we think they can. So more on that next meeting, and you will all get a resolution so that we can award that contract. University of Virginia is number 2 in basketball. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Doing pretty well this season. I'm totally drinking the Kool-Aid.
And Eagles are going to.
No, not like that.
Oh, yes, Eagles, oh, yes.
Employee survey. The biggest issue that came out of that employee survey has come to my attention, and that is how work is assigned, especially to part-timers. So we are working on that. We had a grievance that we were dealing with in, an employee grievance in December. That took up a lot of time, but I think we've kind of worked that out with that particular individual. It's kind of led us to trying to develop some new procedures on how we are distributing work, especially when times are slow.
So the root cause was
The
fairness
driver, you
of
find
the
the driver.
distribution.
Yeah, and it's really, I don't know that there's necessarily too much subjectivity that goes into that process, except for the fact that you have certain drivers that will take a shift no matter what. And so those are your kind of go-to drivers. And so we need to make sure that the call is made to someone else first before you get to that person. So really what we'll be doing is standardizing that call list, and that will be dynamic call list so that someone gets it this time, they move to the bottom of the list type of thing. It takes the subjectivity out of that process. We will be distributing a new employee manual coming out this quarter. And a lot of these new procedures will be involved in that, will be incorporated in that. Some other changes are how we're dealing with workers' comp and other extended absences as it relates to the benefits. Like, we're having issues where people weren't making a paycheck, but they still had like their insurance responsibilities and other things that were coming out of that check, and how we're doing the invoicing for that and all that garbage. So we're gonna put some rules in there related to that. Obviously, if you're on workers' comp, then we're paying for it, because you got hurt on the job and that type of thing.
Have you had to revise, I'm sorry, have you had to revise your withholding statements based on the latest tax legislation?
That comes next month.
Okay. The university, I just know the university has announced it's available now
Yeah,
or
no,
in the next 2 weeks or something.
I know Kathy is really looking forward to the new company dealing with that for us. So I forgot to say on the payroll, we're looking at a April 1st startup. It's got to start at the beginning of a quarter. And we'll do a couple of weeks where we're doing both procedures just as that ramps up. In terms of, how people are clocking in and doing this other method. So that's the goal for that. Also in the employee manual are some updates on vacation use and accruals and how much you can accrue across calendar years.
That's just to please Daryl.
Yeah, that's just a Darrell amendment to a
Take
call.
care of those
That's
workers'
tomorrow's.
families.
Sure, Kim and I will work on it.
Yeah. It seemed like the last part of December, maybe into the first week of January, we had the run to end all runs on advertising requests. Some of which didn't happen primarily because there was one entity that wanted to do they were talking about 6 buses. And we were like, well, we don't want 6 buses with the same advertiser on it type of thing. And it kind of led us to a number of things where we need to work on how we're doing those contracts and those types of things. But we do have 2 reps in the works, 2 different clients, and a ton of interior ads that we're working on with a couple of clients. So, these aren't, the extra revenue is always welcome, but they're not huge revenue generators, but,
Why wouldn't you want 6 buses
Yeah,
at once?
same thing, why wouldn't?
Who cares?
cause I don't, it wasn't, Joe's Pizza, but I don't want 6 Joe's Pizza buses running around.
Why?
Cause it lose our identity. I mean, it's got our logo on there, but I just,
Our logo has to be on every side.
and it does,
Right,
right?
it's already on there, but, okay, so why, it's gonna be on every side regardless if you have 6 different ones or the same guy. I'm just trying to understand the logic to why not.
If Joe makes really good pizza.
Because if I had to do 6 buses, I'd probably have to do one on a new bus. And I'm not really wanting to do
Okay,
That
now
I
we're
can
getting down to the
understand.
real,
Not quite yet, not quite yet. We were being cognizant of the fact that we had the 10.
I can understand that.
Bottom line, the update is surrounded on, Michelle's working it, and, we've got a lot more interest on that front.
Right, don't play
Some
poker
from
for a
public
living.
entities, so that's a good thing.
I think poker for a living is out for you.
Yeah,
Play
probably.
But I'm saying, so the board says I can sell 6 buses.
Oh, I could.
So you're gonna go over my head, is that
Leave
it?
it.
Well, if it's there, it's there, but
It's all
the
about
problem is
the-
pulling them out of service.
I understand,
Well, the
I love the
check is
beauty
for
of the big buses too, and, I don't wanna do much to distort that.
Yeah, because then we gotta start looking at the cutaway.
They just look
You
so
better go
pretty.
put the one on the lift again. He's up
2
there, he's up there again.
2 more items. Over the weekend, we filled up 2 shop truck loads worth of paper and sent it to
Worth of-
recycling.
They're actually coming.
Worth of what?
Worth of paper. We did a huge file purge. I threw away stuff from 1986.
Then you'll need it
I'm looking at
tomorrow.
Ivory because a lot of that had your stuff on it. Hopefully you don't have any misgivings, but there was, oh my God, it was just a mess back there.
Bernie's got a duplicate.
Totally cleaned
You
up.
should have given it to Bernie,
I got it in my room.
He's got all the archives he needs.
Yeah.
But it was something that needed to be done for a long time, and we finally, we sent a lot. We still have 25 or so boxes to be shredded, so they're coming next week to come shredded. But there was stuff that could just be recycled, and so we loaded up the recycling bin up at one of the recycling center deals. So at no cost to the authority, we were able to dump all that stuff. And then the last thing on my list is my schedule is changing a little bit, at least for this semester. My wife has classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I need to pick up my kids, so I'm leaving early on Tuesdays and Thursdays around 2 o'clock to go pick up kids from school, just to let y'all know. And then I will be going to this GM summit that I told you about last meeting my flight leaves at 11:40 on February 21st, and I'm thinking that is the date of the Finance Committee meeting.
I am also out of town that particular day. This is one of the accreditation meetings.
Right.
Marvin, you might want to look to move that by a week, not for me necessarily, but to have Brian.
Brian's on.
Well, if we can.
That is, it's 10 o'clock on the 21st.
Yeah, if we could push it to the next week, that might help the audit folks.
You would have to do it
So maybe on Tuesday, the 23rd or something, is that?
Well, the
what's-
27th is
The board?
is the day
28th is the
before
board
the board meeting. The board meeting is Wednesday, the 28th, because I'm actually at that committee,
Right.
the conference. that
Right.
day,
So maybe the 27th? Tuesday is good for you?
not
We
really.
could do it
No.
now. 20th,
Why don't we just kind of do that at the board
22nd?
meeting?
We could do a quick, like a 9 o'clock Finance Committee meeting before the board meeting, then push the board meeting to the 10.
And Mondays are fine.
Or Mondays?
Yeah, Mondays are fine. We can check with the committee, see if they have any conflict, but.
Yeah, that whole last week.
We'll have Lynette get with you
When
afterwards.
is the board meeting?
28th.
The board meeting is the 28th.
It's not on this calendar, so because my calendars don't always sync.
So I'll be back by then, so Monday would work.
Okay.
Monday the 26th?
Yes.
Could you send
We'll
it?
try- Yeah, we'll try to see.
Usually when you send it, I get it. on
You
my
want to do it
calendar.
at the same time?
Yeah, same time
10?
Monday.
Okay.
Yeah, so if we can get a feel.
All right.
We'll see.
So we'll get the website updated and send out notification.
Okay, anything else for manager's report?
That concludes the manager's report.
Okay, we have no resolutions to approve, to the best of my knowledge. We approved the consent agenda resolutions earlier. We have no reason to go, we have these to sign, we'll send them around. We have no reason to go again into executive session. Do we have any old business? All right, hearing none, do we have any new business?
And I want to mention at the outset, on personnel issues that must be discussed in the executive session, we can discuss positions as long as we leave employee names off the discussion. Is that what I should remember for the future?
That's correct.
And even if we talk about positions with no names, we discuss salaries. That's permissible or not?
That probably needs to go in, except for mine.
I'm guessing salaries are public information.
No,
No.
Just mine.
Well, actually, I think, is it still over 50,000?
50,000.
Public. It's public.
Okay.
So when we talk about
Okay.
positions, we move from one department to another, as long as we omit names and don't say we're giving someone a $50,000 pay raise.
And if I could remind you, it's like when we were talking about, I think some customer service stuff in one of the committees, you mentioned that there were drivers who had been assigned. So, or in the hiring of maintenance, you just mentioned positions, but in that particular situation, was it in November or December, where you were talking about one particular person by name as opposed to the position being moved? So that's the reason, it just needs to go into executive session. And then those personal comments that were made.
right, right.
Yeah, that was awkward. Well, awkward with one of our board members.
So as long as it's by position and no personal references are made.
Okay,
Thanks, Coach.
so we will set up a retreat.
And the
Any-
change for the finance committee, I just changed it on the calendar, so everybody should be getting it.
Okay, and we'll have visual reporting of Brian's commitments as we go forward, and we will, any other reason to
After the
be
week first,
concerned?
Brian.
All right, anybody like to make a motion
What's going on?
to adjourn?
I make a motion.
Deb moves to adjourn, second? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone that wants to stay here longer? Out on the front porch? All right. The ayes have it. Thank you all. Oh, I get to do this.
Thank you.
Yeah.